Welcome to our June Microsoft Teams news show. I'm Rob Scott, and today I'm joined by Tom Arbuthnot from Empowering.Cloud. And together, we're going to be diving into all the latest news announcements coming out of the Teams space. And we're also joined by our distinguished panel of Teams experts. So a very warm welcome to everyone, and thanks for joining us. And welcome, Tom. How's it going?
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, it's been a really busy month. Yeah, again, we had Microsoft Build just gone, so we got some big announcements around that we can talk about. But across the board, some pretty big announcements, including contact center, Teams features, a lot of roadmaps. So we better get stuck in, I guess.
Yeah, we got a truckload of news. But let's just stop a second. I mean, what about that news around Copilot plus PCs? I know it's not quite Teams, but it was big, and all that Microsoft recall stuff. It just hit the newswire and went wild. What do you think to that?
Yeah, so Microsoft announced the Copilot Plus PCs, which is a bit of a fiddly name, but obviously they can't copyright Copilot PCs, so I think that's why it's Copilot Plus. I think the big deal with them is that they're running on an ARM-like architecture, the Snapdragon chips. So while Microsoft pitched it as all the AI capabilities, the fact that Microsoft are going to have a whole range of PCs from them and the OEMs that have really long battery life, really, MacBook Air-like capabilities. We've been really lacking that, honestly, on the Microsoft side of the fence, and Apple have just run away with this hardware advantage. So I'm slightly excited about the AI stuff. I'm much more excited about having a laptop that will run all day on Windows. I think that's the exciting thing for me.
And what about Microsoft Recall, Tom? That really kicked up a storm. I mean, any particular views on that? Is that a privacy nightmare, potentially?
Yeah, that was the headline that got all the... I've kind of gone full circle on this. So initially, I thought it wasn't that bad because Microsoft is snapshotting your screen like every minute or so, and then they're indexing that locally. It all stays local. It's all supposed to be, kind of secure on the device. Which in theory sounds quite good. It's not going to the cloud. It's like literally tied to the device. So even if you migrate to another machine, you can't migrate that profile. But there was just an article on The Verge where an ex-Microsoft engineer has dug in and got it running and found that it's all being stored essentially in a local database in clear text for the AI to run on it. So if you're an admin on the machine, you can get to all that data. So if that is the case, potentially then malware could act on your behalf and get that data. So I think Microsoft have got some stuff to do there if that turns out to be true. Conceptually, I'm not against my screen being captured. Presumably I'm allowed to see it, but I'm pretty sure every enterprise is going to turn this off by default until they're very, very sure what happens. GDPR, selective delete, all that stuff is really tough for an enterprise.
Yeah, it certainly is a minefield, isn't it? Well, next up, we've got something. Well, how am I going to frame this, Tom? It's not.
It's a great name, isn't it?
It's not Teams for. It's not for Teams. It's not Copilot for Teams. It's not Teams Copilot. It's Team Copilot.
Yeah, Team Singular Copilot.
A new personal assistant.
Fantastic name. This is a bigger deal, I think, than most people caught here. This is Microsoft moving Copilot from a tool that personally assists you, i.e. it's my Copilot, I go and do it, to a tool that's almost like an agent, and they actually frame it as a team member. It can be a meeting facilitator, it can be a project manager, and it's a really big deal. Other vendors have been positioning AI as, augmenting a team or acting as a person, but Microsoft has kind of steered clear of that kind of talking until now, but now they're actively saying Copilot can be a project manager for a group of people. So the idea here is you have Copilot join your Microsoft Teams team and your calls potentially, and it can do things that a meeting facilitator or a project manager might do. It can chase you up for tasks. You can see who's got the actions. Really exciting, but interesting for Microsoft if they keep trying to hold this line of Copilot is not here to replace people. But if you call it a project manager, it's kind of interesting how you keep that line. Don't know what others think about the kind of announcement.
Yeah, no, I think that this is a big deal because, as you say, it moves from being a co-pilot to actually being a person. It becomes a colleague, right? And so I think that that's, what we, as a personal assistant is another person. and combined, and what I like about Microsoft Build is you kind of see the future. And so they have these long running and agent capabilities, and combined with this team Copilot person, it is somebody, as you say, Tom, that can follow up and nag you for, hey, last week, Kevin, you said you're going to do this. Did you do this? So um, I think this is less of a co-pilot and more of a co-colleague, right? So I think that is a big shift.
Is that our new Cortana, Clippy?
Clippy project manager.
Okay, well, next up is another name that we've you've seen in the news a little bit over the last few months, but it's Microsoft Places, and there's a bit of news around this, Tom, isn't there? So tell us more.
Yeah, so Microsoft Places got announced ages ago, and it kind of got announced very early, and then the AI stuff came along, and it kind of dripped along. But now it is in public preview. So for those unfamiliar, Places is the concept of having a tool that can help you with wayfinding, desk booking, that kind of thing, and it's going to be included as part of Teams Premium as well. Graham, I think you've had a bit of hands-on with it. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I've been playing with it, an early tap, and it's not quite ready yet, I think. It would be one comment. It's still getting some final polish on there before it releases to a bigger public preview. But as you say, the whole concept is I come to the office, I want to go and sit with my co-workers, Tom and Ryan, and see where they are. I can see, oh, they're in on Thursday. But again, it requires a user to update their status and where they're going to be that week. Remote or in the office, but then you got to work out which office, especially when you're at a campus like somewhere in Microsoft. But again, for those large organizations that do detect what building you're in, what floor you're on, it's going to be very useful to know where your colleagues are to go and work. And we go to the office to co-create now. We can do meetings and video calls anywhere. Being in the office is about being together, so it's going to help do that piece, I think. But then also, as you say, tie into other building management systems. That's the whole ecosystem play then, is into, what's the temperature of rooms? Is it free? Is it too warm, etc.? And then into other areas of, ordering your food and everything else in the restaurant. So there's a lot of things around it, but, it's another app. It's tied into Teams as well, made by the calendaring team. So, it is what we do. We base ourselves on our diary, and that's the team building it and then having a very tight integration to Teams as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's part of Teams Premium. I think that gives it more of a fighting chance. I think if it was another standalone license, it would be a challenge. But when you've got Microsoft now really stuffing some value into that premium license with this, with queues, with intelligent meeting recap. So interesting. But obviously, to get value out of this, you'd need to license pretty much everybody for it to make sense. So it would be a blanket of Teams Premium, which is a substantial investment.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Teams Premium, which has been building, the value case has been building over time, and at launch there were a subset of features that were maybe universally appealing, and others were kind of niche for particular individuals. And so I think now we have another kind of somewhat universally appealing feature, function, group of capabilities coming, and I do think this kind of better late than never, I would say. But this idea of we need tools to optimize hybrid. We need to be able to coordinate. We need to be able to find the right spaces. We need to be able to get the right insights on how we optimize this new modern way of working. There's power in that, and I think it was smart on their side to associate this with Premium.
I was just going to say, I have to admit, I was totally wrong. I thought this was always vaporware. I thought this was just like, I think Cisco has Spaces, and so Microsoft said we've got Places. And I, to be honest, for years, I thought this was never going to see the light of day. So I'm happy to admit that I was wrong, and it actually now looks like it's going to be a real product.
Now, the Places integrations with specifically for the North American customers with 911 would make it much more useful for them as well, because we have one database for 911 services, and then if we can integrate that here in Places, that would be really interesting for and a less headache for team to manage as well.
Yeah, we have another database for our BYOD device room mapping as well, another database for our location. So yeah, if Microsoft could bring those databases together, life would be good.
Well, actually, talking about the mapping piece, it's actually used in Azure Maps for your building locations. So it's different to where it was previously. If anyone remembers Teams panels, that was starting to use wayfinding in the early previews, but that was in search and compliance. So there's different services, should we say, providing the back end now for it, and they're using Azure, which is obviously a lot more scalable, I think.
Well, so much to consider there. Tom, another update slightly related is bookable desks in Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, we've now got some information on how to configure that. So this is kind of part of that wave of BYOD and shared space scenarios, and now you can have a desk or a bank of desks be bookable. Graham, I think you've done again some hands-on with this, haven't you?
Yeah, I've not done probably as extensive testing as I should have yet, but it's essentially you can again book a workspace. Okay, I'm coming into the office and I want to get hot desk number 6. I'm going to book that, reserve it. You need one Pro Portal license to access that and view it in the Teams Room Pro Portal. And then if you have a device in that space, so whether it's just a screen or a webcam or something like the Logi Dock Flex, using that shared device license, which is $8 per month, then you can get some insights from the Pro Portal on that utilization. And then the Teams client, 2.1 client, the new client, new Teams, that also has what we call a shared display mode. So you can then push up your, let's say, video content to the main screen and keep your chat and your Word, Excel, etc. on your laptop. So you're not showing that in front of rooms. So it's not duplicating. So there's a few things, building all this in together. And I think there's a lot of things for people to consider is, what am I actually doing? Is it a shared space? Is it a bookable desk? Hot desking? And then you could have things like neat frame in there as well. And, other shared device license type features. So I think it's very confusing for customers to understand.
It's super confusing because you've got kind of some capabilities that are included in the Teams core license, some capabilities where you need a shared device license, some capabilities where you need Teams Premium. I wish they'd dropped all this BYOD scenarios into Teams Premium as well, because then we could have just said, you license these for Premium, you get all these extra capabilities. I think trying to license on a per room basis is challenging in BYOD because there's potentially thousands of rooms in some of these big customers, and asking for $8 a room is going to be a tough uplift. You have to add significant value, I think. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay, so next up, Tom, there's a big drop of new capabilities to help you manage your Microsoft Teams channels. Do you want to take us through your highlights?
Yeah, there's quite a lot happening here. So Microsoft continue to push. They want team and channel adoption. So despite Teams being called Teams, the vast majority of work, if you look at it, is actually meetings and then chat. So chat in meetings and kind of personal chat, whereas it really, ideally, lots of things should be in Teams and channels. And Microsoft are continuing to tweak the experience to try and make Teams and channels easier to use, less overwhelming. So they've added a new flow for creating teams, so it's less clicks, so it will default some scenarios. They've added a create channel from the same menu as create team, so trying to dissuade people from creating a new team every time, and try to say, hey, create a channel in an existing team rather than necessarily creating a new team every single time. Discovery of public and private teams will be in the same UI now. Previously, for a while, private teams were hidden, so you end up with extra duplication. Also, some clever things around the UI, automatically detecting inactive channels. If they haven't been inactive within 45 days, it will just hide them for you. So the UI trying to tweak itself to be like, these are the channels that are actually important to you. Nice. And some extra mute controls as well. So lots of little tweaks of the experience just to make the channel team experience better.
Yeah, certainly some valuable updates there. Well, next up, we said we'd talk about intelligent recap. There's some updates there as well, especially around the language support.
Yeah, big update on language support. So we've now got 16 more languages. I won't list them out, but we'll put them in the show notes. But obviously that for a global audience is important to have that ability to create the intelligent meeting recaps in local language. And also Intelligent Recap will support transcription-only meetings and scheduled channel meetings. And that's a big one, the scheduled channel, because again, Microsoft try and push the idea that you have a project in one place and you have your meetings in the channel. But if you don't get the AI capabilities, you've got no incentive to do that. So nice to see that. And the transcript only means that we no longer need to actually record the screen and video of those meetings, and we can still get a recap, which is nice.
Ryan, any thoughts on that?
No, it's super strong. I think also interesting that tying into the preview of the intelligent speaker attribution in the cloud. I think it is really becoming this kind of rubber hits the road issue. So I think the recap and Copilot being able to interrogate a transcript, the easiest way that we can get a transcript and we can include rooms, is shaping up to be something exciting. So it seems like we're kind of hitting from multiple angles in terms of making it easier and also being able to include kind of all of both individuals and spaces.
And the interesting fact that we can only do that intelligent recap with transcription only makes things much more easier, because that was a feature of Copilot where you used to have transcription only mode in the Copilot to leverage the Copilot recap. Adding that to Teams Premium would make things much more easier for the end users as well.
Yeah, there's a bunch of customers that for compliance reasons won't record, but they may well accept transcription, and therefore they get the recap of the transcription. And those are considered very different assets in legal circumstances, transcript versus an actual recording.
I think that's really cool. And speaking of cool, next up we said we'd talk about custom emojis and reactions, which I think is probably the best update I've heard for ages. I mean, dangerous or fun? What do you reckon, Tom?
This is a super polarizing one. So this is a really popular feature in Slack. So, I mean, I'm sure that's where the inspiration has come from, right? Slack can do it and we can't. Now we'll be able to. So you better upload your own reaction emojis. Everybody I've spoken to in enterprise is like instantly, let's turn this off because of the risk of inappropriate images or whatever it's being done. So I don't think it'll be an enterprise popular feature, but definitely for those kind of more relaxed customers and the Slack compete scenarios, it's a nice fun feature.
Oh yeah, is it to try and get these startup companies, rather than going piecemeal and getting different applications, they can get the whole suite from Office 365 and have all these features that the funky startups have, like Slack, etc. I wonder.
Well, yeah, and we know things like Zoom and Slack, they get the press of being the cool kids, and Microsoft less so. So I think Microsoft are keen to have the fun features, not just be seen as the enterprise play.
Well, I really like it. And next up, we're going to talk about slash commands, and this is nothing to do with Guns N' Roses, but it is absolutely everything to do with looking like a wizard on Teams. So, Tom, do you want to tell us a little bit about this latest slash commands update?
Yeah, I mean, over the different various versions of Teams, we've had different options for slash commands. So for those not familiar, this is being able to throw a backslash or a forward slash and then invoke certain scenarios like, create a meeting or set your presence, that kind of thing. We're now getting those in the compose box as well. So this is really for kind of your more hardcore keyboard dev type user who wants to do everything at the keyboard. They'll now be able to do those command line slash commands in the compose box.
And speaking of live events, we've got a retirement delay, haven't we, Tom? Do you want to tell us more on that? Why is this happening?
Well, as with all dates that Microsoft announced, they inevitably get delayed. And as per, we've got a delay here. So live events was due to be retired in September 2024 in favour of town halls. All the investment is going to town hall, a newer feature. It looks like timelines aren't going to line up for some of those big customers. So Microsoft have now said they won't retire live events in September 2024. The investment continues to go into town hall, and that's the ultimate direction. But it's probably a case of waiting for either some features or capabilities that are dependent on live events getting into town hall before they can fully depreciate that.
Yeah, I think being working with devices like Rooms and things like that, again, it's not quite ready for town hall to migrate across over to those platforms. So
because we got live event support in Rooms, didn't we? Which was obviously a big deal.
Windows,
and we haven't yet got that in town hall.
Well, next up, let's look into the future. We've got some roadmap updates, some pretty cool stuff coming up. Tom, any favourites you want to mention?
Yeah, a few things I've pulled out from the roadmap. So notify when available. This is a funny one because this was in Skype for Business and then wasn't in Teams and then got added to Teams Classic and then got taken away with the new Teams client and now is back with the new Teams client. So this is the ability to essentially kind of watch or camp on somebody's presence and get notified when they're next available. That's coming into Teams 2.1 relatively soon, into the current new version of Teams. We've also got Copilot in Microsoft Teams, a little improvement here. You'll be able to define the search criteria to a specific set of conversation periods. So you can say, update me on this chat over the last week or over the last month, which when you're using Copilot in Teams is really helpful because up until now we haven't been able to define exact time criteria for when we wanted the update. Automatically hide channels we haven't interacted with. I talked about that on the channels update. That's coming relatively soon. And two big ones for me personally, Microsoft Teams Q&A. So this is the question and answer scenario when you're doing a webinar or a large meeting. We'll soon be able to export those Q&As for follow-up, and we'll have voting, filtering, sorting, archiving during the Teams meeting. So we do the Teams Fireside chat. We sometimes have 350 people on there. The chat goes pretty wild in terms of questions. We'll now be able to, as moderators, sort the questions, let people vote on what wants to be answered next. So I'm really looking forward to that improvement.
Fantastic. Lots of stuff to look forward to. And last but not least on the news front, this week we've just seen a big announcement around Dynamics 365 with Copilot being first in that solution. Tom, do you want to kind of break that down for us and tell us what's just been announced?
Yeah, this is a really big deal. So we've got Dynamics 365 Contact Center, and up until now, that's primarily been focused around you're a Dynamics CRM customer and you add on the contact center capabilities. And it's quite a mix of different tools that come together to build that kind of platform. Microsoft is somewhat simplifying it. They're obviously relaunching it to be Copilot first. So it's all about AI, unsurprisingly, but that obviously makes tons of sense in the contact center space. But they're also decoupling it from you needing Dynamics for your CRM. So you'll be able to connect it up to your Salesforce or your other CRM platform. And that is a huge deal because previously the addressable market for Dynamics Contact Center was limited to Dynamics customers. Now, potentially the addressable market is much wider. So if Microsoft get the AI capabilities right in this, and then they add significant value to the contact center space, that product is way more applicable to way more customers, which is exciting.
Okay, next up, 'tis the season for Teams events. Tom, do you want to take us through forthcoming events in the Teams space?
Yeah, sure. We've got quite a lot happening. So we've got Teams Fireside Chat June the 13th. We've got Juan Rivera, who's the corporate vice president for Teams Calling, Meeting and Devices. So that's going to be a really good one. He's really happy to go deep on the kind of engineering side of what's going on there. So looking forward to that. We have our regular Teams Devices Ask Me Anything with Graham and the team. That's the 17th and 18th online. So 17th for EMEA, US, and 18th for APAC. And then Microsoft have a big event coming up in the kind of rooms space. So they have a virtual converged communications partner technical boot camp. That is on the 18th to the 20th of June. You can sign up for that online if you're a partner. There is some in person for that. I think it's all booked up now, but it is free to access online, which is really cool. Microsoft UC User Group London, 19th of June. So it really is packed in June. We're hosting that at WPP's office in London. So looking forward to that. And then we've also got Commsverse coming up at the end of the month. And that is the big show for Microsoft Teams in the UK. I think quite a lot of our panel here are also going to be talking at that or at that event. And that is the 26th and 27th of June. So that's an in-person Mercedes-Benz World in the UK.
Yeah, and if you are at any of these events, come up and say hi. We'd love to meet you face-to-face in real life, as they say nowadays. But that's it from us. If you want to be part of the conversation, you can connect with Tom, myself, and any of our guest speakers on LinkedIn. And some of us are also on X. And our social links are in the description. Thanks to Tom and all our guest speakers. And thanks to everyone for joining us. And we'll be back again next month with another essential drop of Microsoft Teams news. Thanks for watching.